Well, thank you all for coming tonight. We appreciate your time, your input, your continued involvement on this site, the former Varian site cleanup. My name is Laurent Levy. I work with Jacobs, based out in Boston, and I'm the project director for the former Varian facility site cleanup. I want to let everyone know that tonight's meeting is being broadcast live, recorded. A copy of this recording, as well as our presentation, will be available on our website. For everyone online, please submit your questions via the chat, and we'll answer them as part of the Q&A session. Sorry about this. We do have some handouts for you tonight. Two handouts. One is the copy of our slides that we're presenting tonight, and the other is our annual fact sheet. If you are on the public mailing list, you will also get a copy by email probably by the end of the week or early next week. And all of this, along with the recording, will be posted on our website. I would like to acknowledge a few individuals tonight in the audience. Online, State Senator John Lovely, City Councilor here present, Steve Crowley, welcome, as well as online again, Karen Stromberg from Mass DP, as well as Tiffany Dole right here in our audience. So welcome. On Jacob's team tonight, Carol Mauder, a senior technical consultant who oversees our remediation program, as well as Raymond Cadaret, senior project manager. We also brought Julia Duggan, who was at the entrance, our Jacobs intern for this fall and a student at Endicott College, right near you. Also present online, Amy Brandt, our senior community engagement specialist. And finally, Matt Hackman, our LSP, who review Jacob's work, and he's independent of Jacob. I would like to introduce you Scott Tredenick. Scott is Varian Senior Director of Sustainability. Did you want to say a few words?
Can you hear me okay without it?
Oh, but online.
Okay. Oh, I'm online. Sorry about that. Yeah, just a few comments. It's great to be here. As a quick introduction, when I just hold it? I guess I'll hold it. Just a quick introduction. Been at Varian actually for about 17 years. Primarily in global operations. About 3 years ago, I was asked to build out the sustainability program. So along with that, I was asked to help oversee the environmental sites, focus on Beverly. We know from 2022 there's some real challenges. So first thing I did is hire Matt Gillis. As you know, has done a great job. Unfortunately, Matt has moved on. So we're actively looking to probably find someone internally to oversee his PM responsibilities, just so folks know. Because I've been involved as well, this is the third time I've actually been to the site and seen the progress, which is fantastic. And here to just make sure and iterate that, we're here to support it. I also have a counterpart, a second person who is on the tag call. His name is Jay Kroc. He's Global Director of Environmental Health and Services. He's a little closer to the action. I'm actually in California, so he happened to go over there because he had issues. So we saw each other. I think we waved to each other in the planes going by. So you'll probably see Jay a bit as well. So I'm gonna defer to the experts, but happy to answer any questions afterwards. There you go.
Thank you, Scott. So the purpose of tonight's meeting is to give you an update since our last public meeting, specifically present information from the most recent status report that we published at the end of August, provide some updates on the treatment system designs, summarize the progress of treatment of the construction that has been ongoing. Certain elements have started, so we'll tell you more about this and obviously answer all your questions. So we discussed, this is a small committee, we discussed perhaps have some question along the way with the various modules, Carol and Raymond, so we'll pause to answer your question right on as we go through the various treatment components. So in February, we issued, what am I saying, February? In August, we issued 5 reports. 5 reports were issued in the last public meeting in May. Specifically, that list that you can see here, Phase 4 status report. And in the status report, we have a variety of appendices that cover that include the next 4 report, 2 through 5, the bedrock treatment basis of design, the building 5 treatment basis of design, an enhanced downgraded monitoring plan, which Carol will tell you more about, to monitor the effectiveness of the treatment, but also to make sure that no one is being impacted by any potential change in groundwater. So we'll say a few words about this. And finally, the potential source location, PSL 10, it's built, it's operating, so we have, we published a report with the as-built drawings and the operation manuals, if you are dying to read it. 2 QR codes on your screen with the links to these 2 reports. Report 1 through 4 is the QR code to the left. Report 5, which is, a big one on its own. And obviously you can find this on the DEP website, and if you're at the Beverly Library, you can also get the 2 volumes at the reference desk. Let's say a few words. So I'll quickly summarize where we are, and then I'll pass it on to Carol. So a lot has happened in the past several months. We have continued the Building 3 thermal treatment system construction. We don't have that many updates because we're essentially drilling indoors. We'll have a slide, but we didn't bring our thermal treatment expert tonight because we were doing more of the same since the past 6 months. PSL 10, the subgrade biogeochemical reactor, the SBGR, is built and in operation, and Carol will present the results. The Building 5 source treatment is designed, ready to go. The bedrock treatment is ongoing. We completed 1 stage of the remediation. We're monitoring. We're getting ready to get started on the next step. And again, Carol will tell you more about this. Stream A reactive core mat, which was built more than a year ago, continues to operate, no issues. And obviously, we continue to do groundwater monitoring, air monitoring in some areas, and we'll touch upon these as well. So all of this, you can find the latest in our status report. The status report covers January through July. So, we will present mostly January through July, but we'll say a few words about what has happened since we published our report, because we have a few things and we'll document them in the next report. With that, I will let Carol take over.
Thanks, Laurent. So PSL 10, we don't have our overall board, but PSL 10 is in the parking lot at the far southern end of the site. And we constructed the SBGR last spring, and it's been operating ever since then. There's a couple photos up here. You can see I want to point out the fenced area because we're going to see that in another graphic coming up. This is inside that. You can see a little inset just showing the solar panels that were installed. As a reminder, we've got solar panels to help circulate, to operate the pumps to help circulate the groundwater. So we did baseline sampling last March-May timeframe, and then we also had 1 round of performance results. Those were in the status report, and those are the results that I'm going to talk about this evening. And then for the groundwater system to operate, for the pumps to operate and recirculate, the water table has to be low enough. And the water table has been high for a while. So we just started circulating groundwater in September, late September. But even before that, we're seeing some positive results. And that's what I'm going to show you guys tonight. And then I'll also talk a little bit about what we expect to see coming up. So We did some sampling in September. We'll do some sampling in the winter. Those results will be in February, in the February status report, but I'll talk a little bit about what we expect to see coming up. So with that, let's go on to the next slide. So this is a plan view looking down on the site. This dashed line that you see, and if it's hard to see up here, you've got a copy of the slides that you can look at. That is the fenced area. This inside area right here is where we did the excavation and placed the SBGR media. And what we're going to do is look at some of the analytical data. So we've got 2 rounds of sampling baseline. What that means is before the system was installed, and then after some period of time, that groundwater just flows through the system, and we'll see what the results look like. This just shows where the solar panel is. The blue lines that you see is where the water, when it is recirculating, comes up, infiltrates, and we get a nice recirculation cell. All right, so let's go to the first slide with the data. So this well right here is OB66DO is the name of it. And in each of these graphs, what we're going to see is concentration on the y-axis, and it's going to vary from slide to slide. We're going to have a time frame on the x-axis, and then you're going to see 4 different color lines. The brown and the blue are PCE and TCE. Those are the main contaminants that were released. Where we see some green and red, those are some of the breakdown products that can occur when these compounds degrade. While we see from the baseline this concentration, the line drops, to me that's not saying anything about degradation. That's just showing some seasonal fluctuations. We sample, regularly, and everywhere you're just going to see concentrations go up and down seasonally. It's just, that's what happens in the environment. This well, so I mentioned that we are not pumping right now. Groundwater flow is from where the SBGR is down in this direction. This is side gradient, so the groundwater that's encountering this isn't flowing in that direction. So we wouldn't expect to see any changes there at this point now anyway. So no real surprise that we're not seeing anything there. All right, let's go down to the next well. This one is at a similar distance, but it is down gradient. You can see how it's right next to that. That's OB67DO, and we see a really different profile. So at this well, we've got the PCE at a high concentration, that's at the brown. It drops pretty significantly, but in addition, this light green line increases. That green line is an indication that the PCE is degrading and we're forming DCE, and that's that degradation product. So in addition to seeing that transformation, we also have, we use total organic carbon as a surrogate. That's the food that the microbes like to use. We use that as a surrogate. So we know we have organic carbon showing up, and we see indication that the microbes are degrading the contaminants there. So that's a good thing. That's a really positive sign. We're not even circulating it. It's down gradient, but we're seeing positive results. What I expect to see going forward, these are going to continue to decrease. The blue is going to decrease. I expect the green to go up quite a bit, and then it's going to start to go down. So there's just this sequential degradation reaction that we expect to see. So I'm very pleased with those results. Let's go to the next one. So further down gradient is well CL10DO. One thing that you'll notice, the ones that we just looked at, these were 2 new wells that we just installed. So we only had the baseline results and then the 3-month post-installation. CL10DO, we have a long history. And you look, you see it's got the brown going up and down. It looks like it went up. We don't really see any results since we installed the SBGR. It's a different time scale. Over here is our baseline results. But you look at this and you think, man, concentrations are going up. Why are concentrations going up, since May 2018? But it's really important to recognize a couple things. One, these concentrations are lower. So the max on here is 3,000 versus 60,000 over here. So it's a different scale, but in addition, historically, concentrations at this well were in the 10 to 16,000 micrograms per liter range in the past. So if you remember, there had been some injections in this area. So this was almost falsely suppressed, and it was coming back up. But I expect what we're going to see here in the future is a similar trend to what we saw there, where the brown and the blue are going to start to go down and the green's going to go up. Okay? All right, next one is over here. This is further down gradient. This is in the parking lot down a ways. You see again, it's like, boy, these concentrations look like they went up. So here is the baseline sampling event, and it dropped really, really fast. It dropped almost to non-detect. And the thought is, man, is that from the SBGR? No, it's too far away, and again, it looks to be seasonal fluctuations. Concentrations here, the max are up around 2,000 or so, so again, lower than they are in those up gradient areas. But you look in the past, concentrations, again, they were 16,000. So it's much better than it used to be. There were some temporary low concentrations from previous treatment, but right now we're seeing seasonal fluctuations. Once we start recirculating, I expect these two wells that are a little further north to start looking like what we're seeing at that well. So lots of information. You're going to be seeing more graphs, but I'm really encouraged by what we're seeing so far. So we're seeing degradation at that nearby well that's right in the travel pathway. Any questions on that?
And the whole purpose of this kind of is a mishmash of stuff to encourage, Jan Schlickman, VOC, and just so to understand better the goal of this particular apparatus, it's got an amalgam of stuff, right? It's bugs, basically, right? But it also has other nutrient sources and things like that. So you are encouraging the degradation of the chemical. So it is good to see the change in ratios of the bad stuff is going down, and the
Right.
better breakdown product showing breakdown is going up. So I do agree that it looks hopeful.
And this cell, the SBGR, was only excavated to the top of the water table. We went to 15 feet. These wells that we're seeing are down around 35 feet, right? So they're at a deeper depth. So we've got water that's mounded, and it's helping push that food source and nutrients down, and the bacteria are using it. So yeah, if we're not recirculating anything really yet as of the time of this data, I'm really pleased with it.
Very good.
Okay. All right, next slide. All right, so bedrock is the area that's been more active right now with the injections. And I just want to give you a quick refresher of what we're doing and why. This graph on the bottom is our, what we call the conceptual site model. This is a cross section, so it's like we took a slice through the buildings down into the bedrock, and we're looking at it from the side. This pink shows the bedrock area. This is what we'll call the overburden. We've got some tighter materials. Down here it gets a little bit sandier. And what we discovered with all the investigations that we've done over the last couple years is that we have contaminants getting into the overburden due to density as well as some flow. Diving down in, it gets in the bedrock. These red concentrations are where you see red zones. Those are really high concentrations. It gets in the bedrock, and then it starts to migrate through the fractures and then discharges back into the overburden down along Tozer Road. And when I'm saying it's migrating through the fractures, the photo at the top is an actual photograph of a core, of a bedrock core. Here it's laying on its side. You cut it open, and you can see we've got competent rock, and then you see all the larger pieces of rock, the fragments. If you take that picture and were to stand it up on its side, that's really what it looks like in the ground. So around 141 to 144 feet below grade, you see this fracture zone. Groundwater and contaminants flow through that fracture zone, and this is what we're injecting amendments into. So we're placing some reactive media. It's going to help degrade the contaminants as groundwater flows through those zones. We completed stage 1, which is injecting into 3 wells or 3 boreholes near building 3. And in November, we're going to be doing the stage 2 injections. What I want to do tonight is walk you a little bit through what we did during stage 1 and the results that we saw. So, next slide.
Excuse me, I think we're having just a bit of a connectivity issue. People are trying to get in on Teams and they're not.
Oh, okay. Well, let's hold up. Thank you.
Apologies.
Are they connected or no?
Yeah, it was just everyone else is online, so we're good.
So we're good?
Yep.
Okay. So the bedrock injection area, the dashed red outlines show what we're looking at for the general zone of injections. We injected into 3 injection wells during stage 1, if you can go down to the next slide. So these 3 injection wells here, and we selected those based on what we saw in the geophysics. We saw some pretty connected fractures, and we wanted to start injecting there. We got better delivery than we had anticipated. So we selected a volume thinking, okay, we're going to be able to get this out about 35 feet in the aquifer. We saw it actually go out more like 60, 70, 80 feet in some locations. So when we injected at this central location, we actually saw it show up at this other injection well before we had injected. We saw some of it show up in some down gradient injection wells. So that's really good news, because what that means is we don't have to drill quite as many holes to get the treatment media into the aquifer. So very pleased with that. We're able to distribute it farther. And then we're using that information for the stage 2 injections. So if you click down again, I'll show you where our stage 2 injection wells are. We're going down near building 5 on this side. If you remember, when we were doing our pre-design investigation, we had some bedrock wells on that east side that had high concentrations, and that was the first time we had seen bedrock over there be impacted. We originally had planned to do 3 injection wells. So the 2 that we're doing, and this 3rd location was going to be an injection well. But once we saw how far we could, the amendment would transport, we didn't need as many injection wells. So we installed it as a monitoring well instead. So we still have a well there, but it's really going to be for monitoring performance and distribution. So things are looking very positive with those injections. Next. All right, just a few photographs of the work. This is mixing some of the amendments on the bottom left side. This is doing some of the packering at our injection wells and doing some sampling. So in October, we've got the stage 1 performance monitoring. We're also then in November going to be drilling those boreholes for stage 2, those locations that I just showed you, doing the geophysics, determining what are the intervals that we need to do our injections in. We'll also be installing the monitoring wells, baseline sampling in November, and then we're going to be injecting in December. We're going to then be constructing injection wells and then all the performance monitoring that we've got planned. Okay, so takeaway here is we saw the amendments delivered really, really well, better than we had anticipated, so I'm actually really happy about that, and I'm eager to see what those results are going to show. All right, next slide. Oh, yeah.
Hi, I'm Barrett Smith of Sage Environmental, LSP for the City of Beverly. Carol, I just thought, would it be worth, just for the audience, to explain, when you talk about seeing the amendments in different wells, exactly how you did that and what that looks like?
Yep. So the amendment, if you recall, we decided to add carbon when the Tozer Road barrier wasn't going to be installed. We decided to add some colloidal activated carbon into the injections in the bedrock zone to help trap it and slow things down. Well, that material is dark. It's black, gray. So when you mix the slurry up, it's very dark in color. When we're doing our injections, we are monitoring water levels with pressure transducers in a lot of different wells, and we're also collecting samples from the wells. When we collect the samples, you can sometimes see if it starts to turn a little bit gray, or a black color. And we can sample that and analyze it in the field with a colorimetric method to determine how much carbon is in it. So if we have clear water and it starts to turn a dark gray, we know that the amendment is in it. It's not going to stay black. I don't want you being worried that, oh, we're going to have all this black water, but it takes a little while for that, that carbon is in a suspension, and that suspension breaks, and the goal is that that carbon's going to coat the soil particles and coat the rocks that are in the fracture, so it's not going to stay black. Okay? Any other questions? Okay. So one of the things that's been questioned is monitoring. You know, understandably, people are concerned what's going to happen as we start moving things around. We're doing our injections. We've got 52 monitoring wells that we're going to be sampling routinely. This graphic is really crazy. It's very colorful, quite chaotic, and I want to walk you through all the sampling, but the point is we're doing a lot of sampling to keep an eye on things. So the first thing I want to point out are the high concentration wells, and by high concentration that means over 1,000 micrograms per liter. They're what we call the key wells, and they're the ones that we're going to be sampling quarterly. These are where we see our highest concentrations, all right? In addition, we have lower concentration wells, meaning less than 1,000. We're also going to be sampling those quarterly. These are the pink. I realize it might be kind of hard in the back to see the difference, but we've got lower concentrations. And then further down gradient, we've got low concentration wells that we're going to monitor semi-annually. So we don't have to monitor them as frequently because they're further away, and we expect changes to happen closer to where we're doing our injections. We also have some additional monitoring. The surface water, these 3 locations that we're going to be sampling quarterly, and then vapor intrusion. That monitoring we're going to be doing more frequently, either monthly or quarterly. So that's in these green. These are shallow wells that we're going to be keeping an eye on to, because if there were any type of exposure, it would be through vapor intrusion. So that's why we monitor that one bi-monthly. And then lastly, we installed a bunch of new wells with all of the injection work that we're going to be doing. You can add that up. And those are either going to be a key or a low concentration well. We don't know until we get the original results back. So it's a lot of wells. There's a lot of monitoring. We're going to be keeping an eye on things. And when we look at data, we also then have to decide, well, what are you going to do about the information? So the monitoring plan that we submitted with the status report walked through how we're going to be evaluating that data. So if you can go to the next slide. So first thing is we're going to collect the data. So we're collecting things bi-monthly if it's VI, quarterly or semi-annually depending on it. But then when we get the data, what do we do with it? So the first thing we're going to be doing is evaluating the information that comes in and how does it compare to trends. So if we have a data set that's got at least 8 rounds of data, historic data, we can have these nice statistical trends and predictions, and we'll look to make sure that we're not exceeding those. Or we might look at upgradient data or historic maximums. So we have all these different criteria that we set out in our monitoring plan to know how it is we're going to look at the data. Once we get that data, then we've got to figure out, okay, how do we respond? What do we do with that information? So depending on what the results show, we may do some different things, like do some additional sampling. If our results are higher, maybe we're going to have to collect some additional samples or additional locations, or if things are on track with what we expect, we'll just continue to monitor as we had planned. If there were an increase, there might be some additional responses, such as indoor air sampling, if it was a VI sample, or it could be that we're going to have to do some additional injections in other locations. But we've got a plan based on the data, what wells, how the data are going to look, and then how we're going to respond. So lots of sampling. We've got a lot of folks looking at the data to keep an eye on things. Any questions on that? Barrett? No? Oh, okay. We took your glasses off. I thought maybe you had a question. All right, then with that, I'll turn it over to Raymond.
All right, so I'm going to talk about Building 5. We've talked about what we're doing in this area before. This is an area we're also doing bio remediation, where again we're going to add some amendments to encourage the growth of the microbes that will break down the VOCs in the subsurface. Just to kind of refresh our memory, we have a area under the building where the release occurred. Our plan is to do a couple of different things. One is some vertical wells like we typically do, and then we also are going to do some what we call fanned wells. We will start drilling on the outside of the building at an angle. We'll drill at multiple angles down under the building to hit different depths under the building. So that's part of our plan. When we are doing that, this is in this particular area where we're going to combine the assessment with the actual treatment. We have a good idea under this building where we think we need to treat. But as we install these wells that we plan to treat with, we're going to be sampling. We may think it's zone X. We may see when the data is collected as we're drilling, it may be a little shallower, a little deeper, and we'll adjust our treatment plan based on that. But we have a pretty decent idea of how that'll occur. We're just going to refine that when we do our actual installation. So again, combining that assessment with the actual treatment. Once we have that data from each individual boring where we're planning to inject in, we'll actually perform the injection and then construct a well. And in this particular area, we're going to use a pressurized injection similar to what we did over in the bedrock, where we will push things out into the formation. We're going to actually create space in the soil so that we can get this material out, because this is similar to what we've talked about in other areas of the site. This is an area with dense glacial till. It's a hard soil. It has small size particles and things like that. So we have to make some room for the amendment to increase that ability to distribute the amendment under the building. So we'll be doing that as we do the injection. After that treatment's completed, we'll do some monitoring, and then there is finally the last stage of this treatment will be a shallow treatment. So we're going to work kind of backwards, further away, closer to the source area. Carol talked a little bit about the bedrock, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that. So we're going to do bedrock treatment, then we'll do the deep overburden treatment after that, after stage 2 that Carol talked about. Then the last part will be the shallow treatment, so we'll knock out the source shallow. Next slide. So what's that going to look like? Well, the first part we're going to do, next slide, is install some monitoring wells. These are already installed. That's the 3 monitoring wells you see over here. And so we don't expect when we do this treatment that material is going to move through that dense glacial till, but we want to make sure of that. So we have these monitoring wells that we're going to test and confirm that that's not the case. We think things are going to move from shallow into the bedrock. And that's why, as Carol talked about and what I mentioned earlier, stage 2 is going to be the first part of this treatment. So next slide, we'll do stage 2 of the bedrock treatment, where we'll inject at the 2 wells indicated here. And then the last part will be the overburden injection, where we inject under the building and right next to the building. So that's kind of the progress of how treatment is going to go. Now, I mentioned earlier that we'll be doing some monitoring at these wells down gradient. If we do see movement of VOCs in the overburden, down gradient side, by down gradient I mean the way groundwater flows. So here's our source area. These blue arrows indicate the way groundwater flows, kind of northwest. If we do see that there is some movement, there are some optional treatment locations, next slide, that are near there, so we'll treat there. But again, stage 2 of the bedrock is going to happen first before this gets underway. So with that starting in November, it'll be afterwards that we do this Building 5 treatment. Any questions on Building 5? Okay. Next slide. So last but not least, the Building 3 area. We've talked a lot about thermal treatment in these meetings. As Laurent mentioned earlier, we've done a lot of drilling. That's really the crux of mostly what's happened. There's a lot of well installation that's going on. We've talked in the past about the dense glacial till, hard to drill in. We are now at the stage where we're in the building, and this is a picture. You see us in the building. It's tight quarters. There are a lot of things we need to think about. We need to think about the safety of the drillers. We need to think about keeping any vapors we generate from going into the rest of the building. So there's a lot of parts that have to happen. But it's progressing, and we're to the point now where we're looking at bringing a second drill rig in. If you think about if you have a home that has hardwood floors and you finish the floor, you start in the far corner and you work your way out. Well, we're done on the far corner. We've now worked our way out where we have enough room where we can put 2 drill rigs in there and not paint ourselves into a corner, so to speak. So that's where we're at. So by the end of this month, we expect to have a second drill rig, and that'll help speed up the pace of drilling. What we're seeing when we're drilling is what we're expecting. We're seeing some contamination under the building. Nothing unexpected that we've seen. We haven't seen any new contamination or different contamination or different things. We're seeing the contamination we expect. And also, we've been operating the vapor mitigation controls. I think we talked last time about the new vapor mitigation control that we put up, which is this purple wall along the back building. It's just a better vapor barrier to keep vapors from going into the rest of the building. So that's in place, and that's worked very well. So it's helped out a lot. It's the other thing that helped out a lot was getting an air conditioning system into this building, because it got really hot towards the end of the summer in there. So at this point, we have drilled about just over 7,000 feet of wells in this, as both inside and outside. We have 10,000 feet is our total, so we're 71% finished with that. As we kind of wind down with the drilling, and that's maybe not the best word, as we are getting towards the end of it, we're starting to more and more do that exterior infrastructure construction. I think earlier there was a slide where we showed the transformer that was put in place. We have a nice big transformer. We already had the telephone poles there, or the utility poles there. So next step is get utility company out there to connect things. That should happen in the next couple of weeks. Then, maybe a month or so after that, we will start seeing construction of other things out there. The treatment building, the piping, all the other things. So that's all in place when the drilling finishes, and we can roll right into connecting things up. Next slide. So, any questions on the PS building 3? Go ahead.
Hi, this is Tiffany Duell with Mass DEP. I'm just curious about the radius of influence of those extraction wells that are planned. Like, what is that radius of influence, and what are the factors that determine how big it is? I mean, obviously, like, how much it can suck is a factor, but is the tightness of the subsurface going to impact that radius of influence? And when the thermal treatment gets turned on, is it over designed in the sense that, like, these radii can be expanded, or maybe a monitoring well that's peripheral to the thermal site could be turned into an extraction well if need be? That's my question.
Sure. So Jason's the best person to answer that question. I have a little bit of understanding of it, and all those things are important. The density of the soil are important to how much you can get out of the ground. Most of the recovery is going to occur through vapor. And what I mean by that is that the groundwater is going to be heated and extracted as vapor. The recovery, or the pumping wells, the multi-phase extraction wells, are a belt and suspenders type thing. They're to give us some extra recovery. Anytime I've pumped at this site, you pump it dry very quickly. Recovery is very, there's not a huge radius of influence, but you can pump it dry quick. So we feel like we have the design we need to get the recovery that we need and to maintain containment. And again, containment is really done mostly through that vapor extraction as opposed to those pumping wells. That's just kind of the belt and suspenders part of it. Barrett?
Raymond, as I think we talked a little bit about, it looked to me like maybe there were a handful of wells off to the northeast and northwest of Building 3 that might be, rebounding a little bit.
Yep.
with the thermal
Right.
treatment installation.
Yep.
Just want to make sure that it's obviously something that's on your radar screen.
Yeah, that's totally been on our radar. We've talked about it. And what we've seen is, essentially for years we had a bunch of remediation going there, bioremediation, permanganate remediation, that's stopped since the thermal installation has been going on. So there's stuff now migrating out, and we're starting to
Right,
see
that had
it.
been affected by the permanganate previously,
So we're starting to see it in some of those wells. So the expectation is once we start doing that thermal treatment, that will be cut off.
Makes
And
sense.
we'll see those wells start decreasing, because they decreased when we were doing the treatment before. We expect that. And it's, I was having a conversation with somebody about, those are on the east side of the building, where really the majority of the flow is to the west. So there was some question about that. And just, it's a big site, and there are some localized areas where there's little different things going on. And that's one of them, where we have a kind of a small area on the east side of the building where there's a little bit of flow towards the stream. And that's what you're seeing there. But again, we expect once that thermal treatment starts, that flow of stuff from under the building is going to cut off.
Thanks.
Yep. Oh, Carol.
And I'll just add to that, also remember, it's not just thermal, we've got the biopolishing. So if there are some areas on the outside of that thermal area, we'll come in and do some bioamendment polishing in those areas to reduce those concentrations.
Raymond, we have a question online. I will read it. It's from TW, and the question is, how far will the plume go? And then another follow-up question from TW also. We have an old well on Medford Street. Is that being monitored or removed?
So the first question is, we don't expect the plume to go any further than it is now. So, to some extent, most of the plume, big picture, there are some wells that have increased over time. Most of the plume has reduced or been stable. So we don't expect the plume to change outward anymore, is, I guess, the first question. The second question has to do with a well on Medford Street.
Medford Street.
Yeah, we actually had a conversation before the meeting, because one of the residents had mentioned there was some paving that was occurring in a couple of the neighborhood areas, which we were not aware of. So we are now aware of it. We've reached out to the city engineer's office, and I happen to be here tomorrow anyway, so I'm going to be taking a look at some wells. That particular well on Medford, I'm pretty sure is not one we regularly monitor. It's an older well that was there, but there are some other wells that I'm concerned about, because there's active paving happening on Lexington, I want to say. And then there's planned paving on Sonning, and there's a bunch of wells on Sonning Road that we want to make sure are maintained. So we're going to start a little better communication with the city engineer's office through some of the politicians that are here tonight. So that's on the way. You think that hits that question, or?
Yep.
Was there any more questions?
Just say thank you from TW.
So if there's nothing else, I'm going to kind of wrap things up with we talked about all of these areas, the Building 3 area, the PSL 10, potential source location 10. We talked earlier about making sure to talk about our acronyms, because we're really acronym heavy. Is the SBGR, that's the subsurface bioreactor. Sourceburg. That was all I could think of was Sourceburg. Planned treatment in the Building 5, bedrock treatment in Stream A. We're excited about the schedule because we are making a lot of progress. I'm really pleased, the team's pleased to say that, of the 5 treatment areas, we're actively treating in 3 of them right now. We will be treating in the other 2 areas in 2026. In the case of Building 5, it's going to be early 2026. We expect to be treating in the thermal area in the spring. So, we're pleased with the progress. We're moving forward with each of these treatments. They're actively making the site safer. The site's safe now, and we're making it even safer. And that's moving this cleanup progress forward. Next slide, which I think goes back to you. Yep. So I'm going to turn it back over to Laurent, and maybe I'll advance slides while you chat, or you just want to. Okay.
We should be good. Just to wrap up, next deliverables, we will do more of the same things from 6 months from now. Our next report will be published in February with all the work that has been conducted through the second half of 2025, including the most recent monitoring data. Upcoming meetings, As you know, we have quarterly meeting usually. The TAG meeting, Technical Advisory Group, obviously members of the public are welcome to attend. The next one we are thinking, so it would be a TAG meeting, will be January or February 2026, either in person or perhaps, you know, may consider doing it online just to save everyone a trip, but we'll cross that bridge. And then in the spring, either April or May, we will have another public meeting, PIP meeting, Public Involvement Plan meeting, where we will present more things a little bit more formally. At the beginning of a month, we do provide a monthly update. If you are interested in getting that update, I think most of you, I know, do get that email at the beginning, but if you are not on the list, either scan the QR code right here and you'll be included, or simply come and talk to me and I'll make sure you're part of that list. I think if you're signing also, I do believe I saw someone who added their name and wanted to get those updates. So we'll make sure you have that update. So again, to wrap up, reports available, the Phase 4 status report, which published in August, along with the 4 appendices available either online or at the Beverly Public Library reference desk. 2 volumes are there for your review, online on the Mass DEP website. And on the earlier slide, you can see the QR codes if you want to get to this. Or simply, you can also email us and we'll show you where they are. More information, we have a website, beverlysitecleanup.com. We update it at least monthly with our monthly update. Whenever we have a meeting, whether it's a TAG meeting or PIP meeting, we post the slides. The fact sheet that we distributed today will also be posted there shortly. And if you want to go more in depth, you can find some, reference material from EPA about certain cleanup technology, thermal treatment, so on, and essentially anything you need. And if you want to get a hold of us, you can always email us at beverlysitecleanup@jacobs. With that, we'll be happy to answer some questions, more questions if you have, and we'll monitor online to see if you have questions as well. Thank you.
Carol, I think maybe I want to. I remember the last time the meeting was it the summer. I think we had our last meeting, and we have this overall, concern about: are we catching everything? Are we finding surprises? So it would be helpful, I think, maybe if you could. I know you touched on little bits and pieces, but maybe give us an overall view of where we're finding surprises to the extent we are, and are they in line with our expectations, even though they may be surprises?
I would say no surprises as far as finding contamination that we didn't expect. To me, the surprise has been positive, like we're able to inject the amendment farther into bedrock and get better distribution than we had planned. So from my perspective, that's the only surprise. That's the only thing that comes to mind for me.
The question was with the fracture, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry. Yeah. The last time there was this concern, we were moving up from where the barrier was supposed to be, and we were going up. And then there was discovery of this fractured highway where the stuff was seeming to concentrate. And so the concern was, is the, I guess, bioremediation going to be robust enough to be able to deal with this kind of super collection that's going through the fractured bedrock?
Yeah.
So I know you've been going over that, but just could you, for reassurance purposes here, tell us what is your feeling about the fact that it is collecting and going through the fractured bedrock, well established, but do we think the bioremediation is actually up to the job as opposed to something else?
Yeah, so as a reminder, in the bedrock, so I'm going to touch on a couple of things. It's not just bioremediation.
Mm-hmm.
So bioremediation is when we're just adding a food source for the bugs and we're relying solely on the bacteria to break things down. In the bedrock, what we're doing is we're adding the carbon, which is that trapping, like you think about, you've got a Brita filter or something like that to absorb contaminants. So we're adding that. We also have the zero valent iron, which is a chemical reaction. So sometimes if you just do bio, you could have concentrations that are so high that it's toxic to the microbes. So that's why we have the carbon there to help trap it, to filter it, if you will. Then we've got the iron there if the concentrations are really high to help degrade it chemically. And then on top of that, we have the food source for the microbes and some microbes that we added that are specific for degrading the chlorinated compounds. So it's physical, it's chemical, and it's biological. It's like a triple whammy for knocking out the contaminants. Something else that we did that Barrett and I chatted about beforehand is before we injected, we did extractions of groundwater. If you remember in a previous meeting, I was explaining how injections in bedrock are different than injections in overburden, where you displace upwards, whereas in fractures or in bedrock, when you inject, you could push stuff out. So we were extracting contaminated groundwater before we did our injections. And in tight fractures, we couldn't extract all of the groundwater that we would have liked to because they go dry. So what we ended up doing, and we talked about this with Tiffany came out for a site visit, and what we recommended is, since we couldn't extract that much water in all these fractures, we went further down gradient in the parking lot. That's further down gradient, and we extracted some of the water down there as well. So again, yes, I am confident that the amendments that we're placing are going to do the job. We do have injection wells so that we are installing into those boreholes, that if we need to add additional amendments, supplement it later, we can. But it's really, we need to take an observational approach, meaning we have our plan, we do the injections, we're going to monitor and see how things respond. But it's not just bio.
Yes.
It's all
No,
of
that was
those.
very helpful. And just to be clear, there was this concern in the discovery of this fractured highway, but in many ways, if it is acting as a collection, right, a super collector, that does make our job a little better, right, in trying to attack it the way you've talked about. It's using the carbon to stop it, getting chemical reduction and bioremediation. So I think people's concerns were, I know we've moved the barrier up, and are we going to have something that's going to be robust? And it certainly sounds like so far the plan is working to robustly take care of this kind of super collection that's going through the fracture.
So the design is robust. We don't have the data yet, so
Yeah.
we don't have the post-injection data. The only data we have is to show that it's getting distributed well.
Yeah.
So that we're excited about. And we've only injected in 3 wells. So we're going to be doing the 2 more up by building 5, and then we're going to come back. We have stage 3, which is additional injection wells down gradient of building 3. So.
But at least we know where it is, right? We
Correct.
feel pretty confident that we are
Correct.
dealing with it where it is.
Correct.
So whatever we're doing, at least it's directed
Correct.
at the highest concentrations.
Correct. And each time we're installing these bedrock wells, we're not saying, oh, we already know where the fractures are. We're doing downhole geophysics on every single location because maybe it's going to be at a slightly different interval over at this location. So we're getting a lot of good information, but we're looking very closely and doing geophysics at each location to determine where we need to inject.
Okay. Well, the next time we have a meeting, would we have that? Do you think we'll have some insight into the data you were talking about?
Yeah, we should have our, at least our first set of post-monitoring data for the phase 1 injections. So we should, now we can't present data until it's in a report. So our next report is in February. So if we might have 2 rounds? Okay. So as long as our meeting is after February, yes.
Yeah.
If it's in January, we won't be sharing. We may be able to get up and talk about it, but can't show
Right.
it. Yeah.
Okay, good. Great. All right.
Yeah, really, just as a follow-up to Jan's question, obviously when you did the Toza Road flux tracer analysis, got a lot of really excellent results. and, identify it as an area, a zone where, most of the flux is occurring. Looking at your monitoring plan, you're confident that the existing well network captures that high flux zone. I think it's OB 69DO, right?
So OB 69DO is down gradient of the PSL 10,
Oh, I'm
the
sorry.
SBGR.
Anyway,
But we have a lot of monitors.
You have a lot of wells
right?
down there,
So we
right?
have 52 wells between our treatment zone and
Yep.
Tozer Road. We have additional wells within the treatment zone. And then we have the semi-annual sampling that we do site-wide, which includes south of Tozer Road. So we have a very intense monitoring in the area of injections and immediately down gradient. We heard the community's concerns and we're addressing it through all of that data collection. And then we have our regular data collection.
So I think the wells you're talking about are wrapped into this monitoring.
they're
plan.
wrapped in, from
Yeah,
what I can see,
yeah.
they're wrapped into the quarterly
Yeah.
monitoring program.
Yeah. So we'll be keeping an eye on those, and again, those were located based on the flux data. So we
That's
feel
the point
that's
I'm
in
trying
the-
to
yeah.
get to the audience is that like
So-
the data was gathered as part of the flux tracer.
Correct.
It's not
Yep.
been,
So where we saw the most movement, we have wells that are going to be part of that sampling program.
We have a question online from Anne-Marie Flynn at Shore Country Day School. Has there been any testing to be able to speak to the efficacy of the MATS filters that have been put in place? So I presume that's Stream A?
Yeah. We monitor the stream upstream and downstream of the mats, and we haven't seen any changes with that. The filters, it's a challenge to measure that because the stream, it isn't, the VOCs are not only getting into the stream in that location, it's getting into the stream in other locations. So there hasn't been any change in the stream, but we didn't expect it. That filter was more of a barrier to cover the seeps that we were seeing and to provide a little bit of treatment. In that instance, they're still in place. They haven't eroded away, and we feel that they're still serving their purpose, which is providing a barrier for physically accessing that stuff that's coming out of the embankment, as well as providing some filtration of it. But the concentrations in the stream haven't changed. When we did the assessment of that area, we were illustrated there was no significant risk to pets and to people. So, things have not changed and increased. Ultimately, as these treatments are completed upstream, by upstream I mean up gradient on the site, we will start seeing changes. But it's going to take time before we see those changes down near the stream. By time I mean years. That's a long distance for the flow to occur, but the mats are still performing the function that they were designed to.
Question from TW. Kids have been playing in the stream, so they are okay doing that.
Correct. We did an assessment, risk assessment of the streams, the concentrations we saw in the streams. That was reviewed by Mass DEP, and Tiffany can speak to that. That showed there was no significant risk. It was a conservative assessment. I don't remember the numbers, but it was, somebody was in the stream 3 days a week for weeks every year for 15 years or whatever. It was. I'm speaking off the top of my head, but it was a conservative assessment of
A large portion of every summer.
Correct.
Until you
Yeah.
up to
and we
turn 18.
correct, and we also looked at exposure to pets if a pet was drinking the water in the stream. So we feel that kids playing in the stream, there's no significant risk.
In addition to that particular area being inaccessible at this point.
Correct,
to
where
that-
those seeps are. Yep.
With that mat, yes. No more question online.
Did you want to add anything to that? You don't have to, but okay. Yeah. Okay. So you had another one online? No. Any other questions?
I have a question. So on the SBGR, I walked you through a bunch of graphs. Is that too much information? Is that like putting people to sleep, or do you want to see that kind of stuff and talk about it here? Okay.
I like that SB.
Okay, well, you might. I just don't know how everybody else feels. Yeah.
If there are no other questions, I think we'll close this meeting, and obviously feel free to come and talk to us. And if you're online, thank you for your participation. We will be logging off right now.
Yeah. We appreciate the questions because it means
Appreciate,
people
yeah.
are listening.
Thank you.